Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tony Holowitz, and I want to thank you for being here for this class in our Microsoft Excel Top 20 Tips. What I hope to accomplish in this class today is I want to give you an overview of what I think people need to know when they're brand new to Microsoft Excel, or even if you have used Excel, what are the 20 top things you should know about to feel that you can say to someone, yep, I know Microsoft Excel, I can do it, I can go to work for you, I can go to a job that requires Excel because I know how to do Microsoft Excel. What is that minimum requirement? Well, a lot of times I think Excel comes down to not so much a minimum requirement, but a lot of software, not just Excel, comes down to just being comfortable with certain aspects of it. Because if you're certain or comfortable with certain aspects of it, you can learn a lot of the other things because there's so many resources. What you see on the screen right now is Microsoft Excel 2013. And what you're seeing is just a bunch of cells. And what I've done is I've opened up Microsoft Excel, and by default it opens up a workbook. And I want to clarify some terminology. When you open up Microsoft Excel, it opens up a workbook. What we're viewing right now is a worksheet. On top of that worksheet is the Microsoft ribbon. And the ribbon has a series of different tabs that you can choose from. And these tabs will become more apparent as you start working through Excel. But most often, you're going to work on the Home tab. The Home tab is where you're going to do things like formatting, choosing fonts, colors, where you want things aligned. It's things that typically you would be used to if you're comfortable with Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word has a ribbon that is very similar to this, but things on the left side of the ribbon are similar. Things on the right side are a little more applicable to the particular software that you're working in. Because I'm working in Microsoft Excel right now, the things on the right-hand side are based on Microsoft Excel. And you'll see that. So as you learn different pieces of software within the Microsoft Office suite, you'll become more comfortable with certain aspects because they overlap. They come to, if you know Word, you're going to be able to figure out certain aspects of Microsoft Excel, and then PowerPoint and Outlook and Microsoft Access. So you have that option. So to backtrack for a minute, when we open up Microsoft Excel, we open up a workbook, and in this particular workbook, we have one worksheet. Now I want to draw your attention down to the bottom of the screen. It says Sheet 1. To the right of it, there's a plus sign. I'm going to click on that plus sign. It's going to add a second sheet that's identical to the first sheet, and they call it Sheet 2. Click again, and we have Sheet 3. So I can keep adding sheets as my spreadsheets become a little more sophisticated. If I click back on Sheet 1, that's going to come up. And what I'm going to do in this sheet is I'm just going to start typing in my name, and I want to describe a little bit more about what you should expect in this class. Even though this class is called the Microsoft Excel Top 20 Tips, I'm not going to sit here and run through 20 tips, numbering them 1 through 20. Trust me when I tell you the things you're going to learn here today will be things that you'll take with you and things that will carry over. In other words, I'm not going to number them, but there will be more than 20 things. So when you're looking at Microsoft Excel, one of the things I like to mention is that there's a lot of different ways you can look at Excel. You can look at it as an Excel programmer. Now you can do some really fancy stuff with this, which I'll show you some of those things. But I don't want this to be for that type of user. I'm not a programmer. I'm not an Excel expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I know the fundamentals. I know the basics. So what I'm going to do is this class or these top 20 tips are really for the everyday user. So it's going to be a bunch of little things that I'm going to package together to get you comfortable with this. The trick to Excel is go out and just start using it. Do something with it, get acclimated to it, and learn little by little. So one of the first things I want to talk to you about is I've typed in my name, Tony Holowitz, but it's incredibly small. So there's a couple ways I can make my name bigger. I could go up and I could change the type style, and I could make it huge. I could make it size 72. But sometimes we need it that size, but we just want to be able to view it a little easier. So I'm going to go way down to the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and down here there's a slider with a minus on the left and a plus on the right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it a little bit to the right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so my name is bigger. Now what I want you to notice is everything on the screen got bigger, but as I zoomed in, before we could see more than 13 rows, and these are numbered rows on the left-hand side. We have columns across the top. The rows are numbered, the columns are lettered, A, B, C, D, and goes on, and once we get past Z, the letters will start to double up. It will go A, B, A, C, and then it will go to B, A, B, B, and it keeps going. So the letters double up. Now, just a minor point is if you don't like dealing with letters, if you're more of a numbers person, there's actually an option where you can go in and you can choose to make the columns numbered instead of lettered. Minor point, just want to throw that out there. So what I'm doing for the purpose of this class is I'm zooming in so that we can see things a little clearer, and it just makes it easier on your eyes and on mine. But to do that, I'm going to go back to the direction we were in, sort of in the middle. And I want to draw your attention that now, as I sort of scroll back to where we were, we can see 39 rows now. And if you look down the numbers on the left, so when I come in and I try to zoom in to make this bigger, now we're only seeing roughly 15, 16, 17 rows, and even bigger, down to about 14. We don't lose any information, it just makes it easier on the eye. So what I did is I typed in my name, Tony Holowitz, and then I just hit the Enter key and I went down one cell. Now Microsoft Excel is made up of cells. And these cells start way over here with this very first cell in the top left corner. And this particular cell is cell A1. And you look at the column name and you also look at the number. But if I click in a random cell, I want you to observe that the column is gray, the number is gray, or it's a gray highlight to make it stand out. So now I'm in column C8. If I jump around, you'll see the columns will start changing. Okay. Now, when I'm working in Excel, I can do a lot of little things with it. For example, if I do want to make the type style of my name different, I can click on the cell that holds my name, and I can go up, I can change the type style, and I can change the size, just like we normally do in Microsoft Excel. I can change the font color, I can make it a blue, and all kinds of changes like that. I'm going to go up, and up above the tabs, there is the quick access area, and I'm going to click undo to undo the steps that I've gone through because I just want to get it back to sort of the normal size. I don't want it to be too big, and I'm going to leave it right about there. So what we have the ability to do is we can move around the screen by clicking, but we can also use the arrow key, the up, down, right, and left arrow keys. I can also on my keyboard use the page up and page down key. And the length of the page is the number of rows you see. So in this particular case, we are seeing 16 rows, and if I hit page down, I'm going to jump down roughly 16 rows at a time. Let me go back and do that again because I want to start at 1. When I go down, I've gone down to 16, and then to about 31, 32, and so on and so forth. I'm going about 16 rows at a time. So I'm just going to hold the page down key, and I just want to illustrate to you that Microsoft Excel has tons of space. As I do this holding the page down key with my finger, you're seeing the rows fly by on the left-hand side. So at some point I'm just going to stop, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click in the middle of the screen, and I'm going to go way over to the right. And as I go over to the right, you'll see the columns change as well. Now I'm in A, B, A, C, and I can just keep going way the heck over here, and it keeps doubling up. So now we're in the D's, we're at DG. I'm going to just click, and I'm going to hit the page down again, and I'm just going to fly down a little bit, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to type in the name Fred, and I'm going to hit enter. Just threw in the name Fred in a cell. At this point, to get back to cell A1, the very first cell, this is a keyboard shortcut that you can use to get back to cell A1 at any time. I'm going to hold the control key down, and then on my keyboard there's a home key, H-O-M-E. I'm going to do control home, and I jumped all the way back to cell A1. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because I want you to know you're not going to run out of cells. If you're working in an Excel spreadsheet and you're concerned about running out of space, take that right out of your mind because it's a non-issue. If you started to run out of space for whatever reason or you felt you were, you could always go to another sheet and those sheets could be connected together. We won't get into that today, but that is an option for you. So now I've got an issue. I put Fred in this spreadsheet, and I don't know where I left Fred. Where is Fred? We've got to go find Fred. So next, to find Fred, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut using the Control key and press the letter F for find. Now, this box popped up on my screen right here. It's the find and replace box. I could have also come over here on the right-hand side, up on the tab or the ribbon on the far right, and I could have also found things this way. But at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the word Fred. And I'm going to click on Find Next. Now, there's only one Fred in there, so what's going to happen is we're going to immediately jump to Fred. And Fred was in cell CZ8097, and I know that because I can look at the top and over on the left-hand side. So another option I have here is I can replace the word Fred with something else. Let's type it with something else. Let's type in Anthony. And at this point, I can replace all of them. Now, there's only one Fred, or I can replace just this one. So keep this in mind. If you're working in Excel and you make a mistake, you could potentially go in and you could potentially replace a name or a number if you so desired. Now, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but keep in mind that if Fred was in here 40 times and we only want to replace this one, well, I'd want to click on replace. If I want to replace all of them, I could click on replace all. So at this point, I'm just going to click on replace, and it changed Fred to Anthony. I'm going to close this box, and I'm going to go Control Home to get back up to cell A1. So we're just jumping around the screen a little bit, but there's another way I could have got to Fred, or in this case, now it's Anthony. If Control Home gets me back to the beginning point of this Excel spreadsheet, to get to the end of the spreadsheet, I can do Control End, E-N-D, and the E-N-D key on a computer keyboard is typically just to the right of the Home key. So I'm going to do Control Home, and I'm getting all the way back down to Anthony, which you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So we've done Find and Replace, we've done Zoom feature, we've talked a little bit about the tabs, the ribbon. That's roughly about 4 things. So see how quickly this is going along? I'm going to do Control Home, and that's a keyboard shortcut. That could be number 5, Control N could be number 6. So you're going to get plenty of information out of this class. So next, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to click on the cell that has my name in it. And I want to draw your attention up to this bar right here. This is called the formula bar. And the formula bar is where you can actually type in information, or you can type it right into the cell. So let's say I want to modify what was in this cell. I can come up to the formula bar after I've clicked on the cell, and I can type in something and then just hit enter. So now what I've done is I've said Tony Holowitz was here. If I want to modify this right within the cell it's in and not go up to the formula bar, I double click and I'll get a blinking cursor, and now I can navigate to the end of what I was typing, and I can finish typing some more things. Okay, there we go. So now I've added to that. Now, if you said to me, where is this sentence? What I just typed, where is it located? Well, if I click right here on this cell and I look up at the formula bar, there's nothing in the formula bar. If I click next to it, nothing. If I click on the first cell where my name started, my name and the other part of this sentence is actually in cell E4. Why is that relevant? Well, when I type something and there's nothing in the cell next to it, Excel will let it spill over into the next cell. But the minute I click in this cell and type something, it blocks or hides what was behind it. So again, things will spill over into the next cell unless I type something in the cell that it's spilling over to. So just keep that in mind. If I want to move my name, if I click on the cell that has my name, I want you to observe that there's like a box around my name, or what you can see of it at this point. When I use Excel, the pointer is like a fat plus sign. When I take that pointer and place it on the side of my name, the cell that holds my name, the green lines, I'm going to get a four-headed arrow on top of my pointer or underneath. When I click and hold, I can now drag that and move it to a different area. So now I've moved it around. If I want to do that again, just grab any one of the sides, the right, left, top, bottom, doesn't matter, and I can just drag it anywhere I see fit. So it's really easy to move things around in Excel as long as there's nothing there. So that's a really easy way to do that. Next, I want to show you a couple interesting things about entering information in Excel. First, if I want to type in numbers, let's say I want to type in the number 1 through 100, or the numbers I should say. Basically, it's a list. It's a numbered list. Well, it could take a little while. I could hit 1, I could go down to 2, go down to 3 and 4 and 5, and keep hitting enter after each one. It would probably take me 3 minutes to do that because I got to count all the way to 100. But what's interesting about Excel is the one thing about the Microsoft engineers is they've said, okay, let's take some common things and see if we can simplify it. So what you'll notice here is I've created a pattern. That pattern is just a numerical pattern, 1 and then 2. So if I click on the first cell and then drag down to the second cell and release, just let go, you'll notice both cells are selected. And now what I can do is on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little square there. It's a little green square. When I put my fat plus sign on there, the white plus sign, it turns into a skinny black plus sign. If I click and hold and drag down, you're going to see it's flying down the screen. And if I just release, it created a numbered list. Now, I went a little too far, but that's okay. I've got the numbered list right there. So I've been able to count down and create a number pattern in Excel or a numbered list really easily. So I like showing that because in my opinion, that's one of the first things I show in Excel in this class that says, hey, this is sort of interesting. This does some cool things. So now I'm going to do Control Home to get back to cell A1. Okay, we got Monday. I'm going to click on Monday and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to drag up to cell F1. I'm going to come here and I'm going to type in Tuesday. Okay, so I've created a pattern. So what do you think I can do with this pattern? Well, if I click on Monday and drag down to Tuesday to select the first two and then let go, now I can come over the right-hand side and I can just sort of drag down and I'm creating a pattern. I created a pattern of the days of the week. Well, let's look at that another way. Let's say I came up here and I went MON and I came down here and went TUE, another pattern, but I've abbreviated it with the shortcuts, the abbreviations, and now I'm creating the same pattern, but with all the abbreviations. Let's come over here. Let's go, and as you can see, I'm doing some very common things, but these are some of the things you can do with Microsoft Excel really easily. So this is the thing that I want you to think about when it comes to Excel. For that matter, any piece of software. When you're working in software, I want you to ask yourself this question. Is there an easier way? If you think there might be a chance that there's an easier way, you know what? Look it up. Go Google it. Say, how do you make a numbered list in Excel? How do you make a list of the months in Excel? There's all kinds of resources. I recommend going to Google first rather than trying to look into help within Excel because I just think you'll get more and better information. You'll find written information, you'll find videos on how to do things, you'll find all kinds of good information. So we've talked about a lot of things here, but now after showing you some of this stuff, what I'd like to do is I'd like to sort of take this up a notch and sort of put some things into practice because I'm giving you a little bit of an overview here, but let's do some things with it because that gets a little more interesting. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I have a bunch of Excel spreadsheets open on my computer. Now what I really should have said, and I just sort of misspoke, and that's sort of just the terminology. I said let's open a bunch of spreadsheets, or I said I had a bunch of spreadsheets open, when the reality is I don't have spreadsheets open as much as I have workbooks open. This workbook that I have on my screen right now has 3 spreadsheets, sheet 2, sheet 3, and sheet 1. Okay. While I'm here, let me show you a little trick. If this sheet 1 had a particular reason for being, let's say it was just to show you some techniques or Excel tips, well, if I double click on the word sheet 1, I can type right over it anything I want so that these tabs remind me what the sheet is. Let's go over to sheet 3 and I'm going to double click on that and I'm just going to type in my name real quick, and now that sheet is called Tony. If I want to get back to my Excel tips, right there, back to Tony right there. If I want to, I can click and hold on Tony and I can drag it to the left and put it in front of Excel tips. So you can move the spreadsheets around very easily. Okay, so let me move away from this for just a minute. I'm going to go into a spreadsheet that I like to call Tony's Place. And this Tony's Place spreadsheet has 3 sheets. It has a sheet 1, something called HR, and something called formulas. And yes, I am going to show you how to work with formulas. I'm going to click on the HR tab and I'm going to talk about this a little bit. When you decide you want to start using Microsoft Excel for something, what I highly recommend is that you stop and do a reality check. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Microsoft Excel does a lot of things, as you're going to see, but don't reinvent the wheel. For example, if you said to me, I'm going to use Microsoft Excel to keep track of financial information for my company, I would say, wait a minute. Can you set it up to do that? Absolutely, you could. But should you? That's another question. First of all, if you're trying to develop it from scratch, it's going to take a ton of time and you'll need a ton of expertise to do that. Second, what I'd really urge you to keep in mind is that there's a good chance that there's software out there that does that type of thing already, so you don't have to. And an example of that is QuickBooks. If you're doing financial accounting for your company, don't try to do it in Excel. Do it in QuickBooks. QuickBooks is, a couple $100, $300 off-the-shelf software that is designed to do just that. If you said to me, I'm going to keep sales prospects in there, again, don't do it. I happen to teach a piece of software called ACT, which is a contact manager and CRM software. You know what? Don't do it. Use a tool like that because it's cheap to buy and it does so much more. Think of it like an Excel developer figuring out the best way to set up Excel, and they develop these 2 products. That's a good way to think of it. So don't reinvent the wheel. Don't do things. Always ask yourself the question, is there a better and easier way that might include a little bit of a cost to buy something, but in the long run that tends to be cheaper than you sitting there with your time trying to develop it. So in this particular case, what I've done is I've created a spreadsheet, and I'm going to pretend for a moment that I'm a human resources person. And what I need to do is I need to keep track of my employees. So I'm just going to type in the first name right here. I'm going to type in John Smith. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go Fred Jones. Okay. Oops. Lousy typist. I'm going to go Sandy Harris. And you'll see I'm just typing along. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in another name, and it's going to be the name Jerry, J-E-R-R-Y. So as I hit the letter J, I want you to notice what happens. Excel looks up the list and says, hey, wait a minute. We have someone by the name of John Smith already in this list or in this column. If he wants to type John Smith, all he has to do is hit enter and John Smith will go right in. But I really don't want John Smith, so I'm going to click on that cell. I'm going to hit delete to click out of it, and I'm going to start with the J again. But because I was trying to type Jerry, I'm just going to start typing right over it. Okay, so I'm going to type in Jerry Kent. So the first thing I want you to see is it has a little bit of a memory so that as you're typing things, it makes it easier to type. Next, I'm going to come over here and put in a phone number. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me because this is my actual phone number, 781-728-9777. I'm going to hit the tab key to go to the next one. I could also have used the right arrow key. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Social Security number. And I'm going to type in 123-456-789. And I'm going to, again, hit the tab key, and I'm going to go over. Now, there's a few things that I want you to observe right here. I want you to observe that when I typed in the phone number, it came up looking like a phone number. When I typed in the Social Security number, it formatted like a Social Security number. Now the reason for that is this. If I came over here and typed in my phone number and hit enter, it does not format it as a phone number. It's just plain text. If I click on that cell with the phone number in it and right click, I can go down to where it says format cells. And a box is going to pop up that will allow me to format this particular cell in a way. I urge you to go in and look at some of these options, but I'm going to go down to special because I know what it is, and I'm going to click on phone number and OK, and it formatted it. If I come down here and type in another number, you're going to see it didn't format that one. And the reason for that is because previously I had only formatted the cell. I didn't format anything except this one cell. So this time I'm going to come over and I'm going to come up to column G and I'm going to literally click right on the letter G, and I have selected or highlighted the entire column. So at this point in time, I'm going to come right here and I'm going to type in a fake social security number, which is 9 digits. Okay. Actually, you know what? I misspoke. Let me do that again. Let me start over. I'm going to click on G and I'm going to right click. I'm going to go format cells, and this time I'm going to go down to special because I happen to know it's there. I'm going to click on social security number and click OK. So now what happens is when I type in a social security number, it formatted that social security number as it should look. If I do the next one, it formats that as well. So this is the thing about Excel. When you're working in Excel, sometimes it's worth it to slow down and ask yourself a couple questions. First, whatever you're doing in Microsoft Excel, is it something you're going to be doing again and again and again? Because if that's the case, it's worth it to open up Microsoft Excel and create something, format things before you ever put in any kind of data. The data here just being the names, the phone numbers, social security numbers. Format all the rows, the columns, do all the work, and then you're prepared to enter data. And it makes the data entry easier and quicker. So sometimes I recommend, not sometimes, all the time I recommend, when you're about to embark on an Excel project, you know what? Take a step back, pull out a piece of paper, and try to decide what it is you're trying to accomplish and sketch it out on a piece of paper, make notes, go into Excel, do your formatting, do your layout, do whatever you need to do, and then save it. Now, when you save something, you can save something as an Excel spreadsheet, or you can save something as a template. If this is something you're going to use over and over and over again, save it as a template. Unfortunately, in this class, I don't have time to really go over that, but if you have questions, that's the kind of thing you can reach out to me and talk to me about that, and I'll try to answer your questions about templates or documents. You know, again, just in this class, I can't do everything just because of the time constraints. So on that note, think it through a little bit. So I've shown you a couple things here. I've shown you some formatting things to think about, and shown you why you would and would not want to use Microsoft Excel. But next, I want to jump into something a little bit different. I want to jump into something called formulas. And formulas are what people typically get all nervous about when it comes to Microsoft Excel. Oh my God, I got to create a formula. Well, I want to be really clear on something. To create a formula, I am going to teach you how to cheat to create a formula. And cheating is the easiest way to describe this. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. I'm going to come down on the Formulas tab and click on it. Again, I'm going to zoom out or in a little bit, just so this is a little bit bigger. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about formulas. When you're working with Microsoft Excel, it's a little bit like high school math. If you have a little bit of knowledge of some high school math, this is going to be easier to work with. All formulas start with the equal sign, and most of the formulas can be manipulated using the addition sign or the plus, the minus sign, an asterisk for multiplying, a forward slash for division, and a percentage sign for a percent. I'm not going to show you the percent here today, but I'm going to show you some things we're going to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to take this information, I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to move it out of the way. I just want to get it out of the way down here. Next, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in a number. I'm going to type in the number 5, and I'm going to type in the number 10. And in the cell down below, this is what I want to accomplish. I want to create a formula that is going to add those two numbers together. Now, if you've never worked with formulas, you should probably be a little nervous right now if I asked you to do that, because you don't know how to do that, you don't know where to start, you don't know how to do it. So this is the cheating part. I'm going to teach you how to cheat to remember how to do formulas. And this is exactly what I want you to do. What I just did. I want you to put a number in the first cell, put another number in the second cell. And in the third cell, I want you to observe up on the ribbon, there is something called AutoSum. And I'm going to click on AutoSum, and I want you to watch what it does. It threw some dancing ants up around the numbers 5 and 10, because what Excel is doing, it's saying, hey, wait a minute, I think he wants to work with numbers here. Let's find the numbers. And it looked right up the column and found those numbers and is making the assumption those are the numbers we want to add together. Also below it, in the bottom cell, it created a formula. That formula starts with the equal sign, just like I said, puts the word sum in there, and then in the parentheses, F1 colon F2. To lock this in, you can either click on AutoSum a second time or just hit enter on the keyboard. So now what it's done is it's taken those two numbers, the 5 and the 10, and it's summed it together. That's how you create a formula. You do it automatically using the AutoSum. But let's say you come back later and you can't remember how to do that. We'll just simply take two numbers, and then in the third cell, click on AutoSum and the formula will be created. And then what you'll do is you'll look up in the formula bar. Hey, that's why they call it the formula bar. And you'll look at the formula. And again, that is the basis for all starting points with formulas. The equal sign, the word sum in this case is what we're using, but you're going to see how that can vary. And then in parentheses, F1 colon F2. So it's not that hard to do because you're going to cheat to remind yourself how to do the formula. Let's go over here again. Again, we're going to take a couple bigger numbers. We're going to take 100. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go 200. And in the third cell, I'm going to go up and click on AutoSum. I can click on AutoSum a second time and it locks in the formula. So now we have a little bit bigger number to work with. So let's go up to the formula bar and let's manipulate this formula. So I put in a formula, and now this time, let's say we want to take this number, but let's say for the sake of our discussion that we want to subtract a number from this. So I'm going to put in the minus sign, and I'm going to put in 2.86. So what we're doing is we've created a formula, and then we're telling it whatever that adds up to, deduct 2.86. I'm going to hit enter, and there's our number. Let's go back to that formula by clicking on this cell that holds the formula, and let's change this. This time, let's put in an asterisk, and let's go times 5. And I'm going to hit enter. Now it takes the total of 300 times 5. So again, you can go in and really learn a lot of things about working with formulas just by messing around with them and working with basic high school math. So this is the trick. 6 months from now, when you come into Microsoft Excel and you can't remember how to create a formula, remember how to cheat to create a formula. You cheat by creating the first two numbers, and then in the third cell right below it, click on AutoSum, and then click on AutoSum a second time, and then go look at the formula that was created. In this cell right here where you're seeing the number 15, the number 15 really isn't there. The number 15 is really just the results of a formula we created, and it's showing us the number 15. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let me show you a couple other cool things. Let me come here, and I'm going to type in another number, and then I'm going to type in, let's say, 3,000. This time, when I go up to click on the AutoSum, I want you to observe that to the right of it, there's a drop-down. When I click on the drop-down, there are some options here. We've used the sum, but we could also use average. It would average those two numbers. If we use count numbers, it will count the total number of numbers that I've chosen to add together. We can show the max and the min. Or if we click on more functions, this is where Excel really takes off. These are most recently used, but if I click on this drop down and choose all, I can see all kinds of things. But to draw your attention, there's financial formulas, date and time, math and trigonometry, statistical, lookup and reference. There are all kinds of formulas, engineering, all kinds of stuff here. Now, frankly, this is not something that I'm experienced enough to even begin to talk to you about. But if you click on any one of these, math and trig, what it's going to do, it's going to show you all these formulas over here. And if you click on the formula, it will give you an out or a description of what it does. And obviously you knew that that returns the arcotangent of a number, comma, in radians in the range of 0 to pi. Oh my God, I could never figure that stuff out. So there's all kinds of things in here, and this is where Excel gets really technical. People that use Excel come from all walks of life, all professions, and you can get very complicated with this. But having said that, for the average everyday business user, don't get overwhelmed by that. You'll be able to figure it out. So in this particular case, I'm just going to click cancel and I'm going to move on. So what we did here is we created a formula and we basically just wanted to look at it and see how we could remember to do the formula easily. Let me do this. I've got a couple things here that I want to show you real quick that will allow you to understand this a little bit more and understand how we can work with Excel in a little bit greater degree. What I've done here is I have come over here and I created this spreadsheet that has a lot of information in it. We have a company, a first name, a last name, contact title. There's all kinds of information here. Sometimes you're going to get an Excel spreadsheet and you're going to have a lot of information that you got to work through. So in this particular case, we want to understand how to work with this information. In the previous tutorials I was giving you, there were a couple things that I didn't say. Let's say we wanted to know something about this and we want to assign a sales rep from our company to these people. But there's obviously not a header here or something that says salesperson or rep. Well, I clicked on column D and I'm going to right click and I'm going to come down and click on insert, and to the left of where I chose, it inserted a blank column. And now I can literally right here type in salesperson. Okay, I could type in salesperson and leave it just like that. Bear with me a second while I get something out of the way. There we go. Hang on, that didn't take. So I'm typing in salesperson just like that. So we could do that very easily. I can also, if I want to do a row, I can click on a row, right click and go insert. But let's say I want to insert multiple rows. I'm going to click on one row, drag down. Now I'm going to right click and go insert, and above the area I selected, if I had selected roughly 10 rows, it's going to put in 10 new rows. If I had selected 30, it would have put in 30 new. I'm going to come up and click on undo because I don't want this to be something that I want to undo what I had just done, because I want to show you some things about filtering or sorting this data. And again, Excel has a lot of great tools you can work with. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on column A and I'm going to drag over to B and C and D, and I'm going to grab basically all the information we can see here. Next, I'm going to go up to where it says data and I'm going to come over to where it says filter and I'm going to click on filter. Now what it did is this. Next to each heading, company name, first name, it put a little drop-down box. When I click on these drop-down boxes, I can choose some different things. So let's say that we wanted to find only the companies that are in here where the contact title was president. Well, if I click on this drop-down, you're going to see all these options exist. I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to uncheck everything. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I'm going to uncheck everything one by one. And now I'm just going to choose president. So when I choose president right here, and go OK, now I've filtered this list to just the people in this list with the title of president. Let's say next I want to go down and I want to do the employee size range. Well, I'm going to click this. I'm going to check or click on select all to take all of that off. And let's say we only want companies that are 20 to 49. And again, our first sort we did presidents. The second one we're going to say we only want companies with presidents with 20 to 49 people. And I'm going to click OK. Now we've isolated that even more. Okay. When I look down at the bottom part of the screen, down here on the left, it shows us that there are 50 of 6,641 records that fit that criteria. If I want to take off the filtering, all I have to do is go up and click on the filter, and I took it off for the entire spreadsheet, and now we're back to square one. So there's some interesting things you can do, because a lot of times, not only do you have to create spreadsheets, but a lot of times people send you spreadsheets that you have to interpret and find data in. So that's a big aspect of it. So knowing how to filter data is an important aspect of understanding how to work with Microsoft Excel. Let me show you another tool that's actually pretty cool that will show you how to do some things with what I refer to as a pivot table. Hang on one second. Bear with me. Where did I put that? Hang on a second. Where'd I go? Is it right in here? No, bear with me one second. Maybe I didn't open it. Bear with me just one second. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I've got it over here. I'm going to go back up to the top and let me explain this to you. A good lesson to learn is many years ago I was doing a tutorial for a woman who was a nurse. She asked me to help her with Microsoft Excel. One of the dilemmas I had with Microsoft Excel was she had all this data in there and I did not understand the data. It was all medical jargon, medical information, and I didn't understand it. It was like, honestly, reading a different language. I could not comprehend what I was looking at. Honestly, if you cannot comprehend what you're looking at when you get a spreadsheet, you should never in a million years be required to understand what's in there. So what I've done is I've created a spreadsheet that hopefully is easy to understand. What I've done is I've created some sales information for the New England states, the 6 New England states. So we have Vermont, Maine, Connecticut. We have all the states here. And the salespeople are people that I hope you know. Tom Brady, I'm from the Boston area, is great quarterback. George Bush, Jimmy Carter. And what I've done here is I've set it up so that in this particular case, we understand what's here. Now, the order amount, that's pretty straightforward. The order date, that's straightforward. The invoice number, and the day of the week in which it was sold. I mean, all this information is understandable. You might not know what's here, but you can understand the basic concept. That's important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create what's called a pivot table. And a pivot table allows you to take information and quickly move it around to look at it and review it. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click right here on state because it's really the first part of my data. I'm going to go up and click on insert, and I'm going to click on the left on pivot table. Now what this has done is it's thrown some dancing ants around my data, and the data goes down off the screen. At this point, what I tell everyone is when this box pops up to create a pivot table, don't try to figure it out, just trust it. And just simply click OK. And that's what I'm going to do right here. So now this sort of weird area popped up where I've got some information over here on the right, and I'm just going to drag it out a little bit. And I have this weird information over here on the left. And it's like, what is it? So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, what do we want to see here? And the beauty of pivot tables is you don't always have to understand completely what it is you're trying to put together. You just got to start working with it. Now that I've started working with it, let's do this. Let's try to figure out what the sales were per salesperson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to click on salesperson and I'm going to drag it down and I'm going to put it in rows and watch what happens over to the left. It took all the salespeople, which are presidents and Tom Brady, and put it over here under row labels. Let's come back over here on the right and grab salesperson and drag it over to columns. And you're going to see it put it across the top. Now I like it on the left, so I'm going to drag it or pivot this down to rows instead. So next, what makes sense is because we want to know their total sales, I'm going to come up here and click on the order amount. And because that's a value, I'm going to drag it down to this box that says values. And all of a sudden, it tells us our exact sales for each salesperson. Okay, but maybe we want it a little bit more. Maybe we want to know this information by state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click on state, and I'm going to drag it down to columns. Now what happens is Microsoft Excel keeps breaking all this information down. It pivots, it shows it to you in the way we want to see it. So the thing about working with pivot tables is this. You have to start with an Excel spreadsheet that you understand. You need to understand the data because you won't know how to pivot it if you don't understand it. Once you understand that aspect of it, create a pivot table the way I showed you, and then go back in and just simply start manipulating this and messing around. Again, if I want to take the state and move it down to salesperson, it just made it look different. If I grab salesperson, bring it up to columns, there we go. So you can move it around and see the information in different ways. And that's really good and a good thing to know. Now, in the last thing I showed you how to filter things. Let's say we don't want to see any of the states except for Maine and Massachusetts. Well, I'm just going to choose these. And now we've filtered down the data just based on those two states. So Excel is a great tool. I've sort of gone through all the things I wanted to talk about in this. I try to hit a lot of information, give you a lot of things to think about. But this is just my top 20 tips, things to be aware of, pivot tables, Excel spreadsheets, data sorting. This is just a real brief overview of some of the things you can do with Excel. And I hope you got some things out of this class today, and I really appreciate you being here. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the class, and I want to thank you very much. Again, my name is Tony Holowitz. I can be reached at 781-728-977 if you have any questions. Thank you so very much, and have a great day.